Hello everyone. We have an interesting night planned for tonight. I have a guest coming on very soon and I will introduce him to you shortly. But for those who don't know, I'm Helen Houghton, the leader of the Conservative Party in New Zealand. So whether you're watching from New Zealand or overseas, I'm sure that tonight's topic will be of much interest to you. Now, for those who can see what the title of tonight is, it's around some threats that have been occurring politically and the police response to them. I'll share that with you in due time. And there is an opportunity for Q&A. Our guest that's coming on around 7:15, he will be interested in your questions as well. So put your questions and comments and we will ensure we address them at some point later on in this broadcast. The first thing I want to do though, while we're waiting for people to tune in, and it's great to see so many people have already coming in to watch, so welcome everyone. I do need to just let you know that I'm using my phone instead of my computer, so I can't actually see everybody that's there, but welcome to you all. Okay, I just can't see your comments at this point and I will try to see them a little bit later. I'll just make a statement while we are waiting for others to enter so that people don't miss what the message is tonight. I just want you to reflect on something, and you might be able to put some comments on this and I'll check later. So the question for you to reflect on is, how do we mend the social fabric or even restore trust? Actually, can we? Do you think we can? So put your thoughts there and just let me know if you think we can actually restore trust. Tonight's going to be a big one on trust around our justice system and whether its citizens can actually trust the police and the justice system to do right by everyday citizens. And I've just been dealing with something myself, quite personal, so I can see some of the issues that we have. As well as that, I'll mention the endless noise that we're having right now and around the world of the media cycles and the online rage. I'm sure you've all seen it. I mean, division is really profitable, as you may well know, with the media clicks and political gain, but it's highly destructive for society. And while even I have reacted at times when I see something, we all have the reasons why we come to politics, or even the things that we stand up for. And so we all bring personal experience, and for whatever reason, it's great that people do stand up for things. But occasionally we do rise up a wee bit in a bit of rage, and then even I'm guilty of that. But look, then I try to refocus on the things that matter. I just want to point out one more thing before I talk about what happened with the threats that we received, and it's about unity. I mean, some people seem to think that the government is going to bring unity. It's not going to come from any government. It's actually going to come from how we treat each other. And there's no, there's always going to be conflict. I'm a realist, and I am not naive enough to think that we're going to have everybody in the world kind towards each other. Although somebody told me last night I do need to be kind. Now, the goal, though, is not for everyone to think the same, but can we care enough to actually have the conversations and keep talking even in our differences? That's what I would like to know. Okay, so without further ado, I'm going to touch on what happened. Unfortunately, as the whole world knows, there was the assassination of Charlie Kirk, and I didn't actually know Charlie Kirk very well at all. But since then, I know him very well now, and so does a majority of the population, I imagine. Not long after the assassination, we did put out a statement as a political party, and a little bit after that, I put another statement out, something that was happening here in New Zealand around the Palestine protests, and how our Green Party is involved in that. And so I wrote a press release and put that out, and I posted that to our Conservative Facebook page as well as my personal one. And very quickly, I received a threat. Somebody told me I need to watch my back. And so I was taken aback a wee bit by that because it's my personal page. And I thought, okay. So I did put a message up and asked, because I thought, is this a threat? Because, you get taken aback and you think, well, is it a threat? And so I did ask some people on social media. And not too long after that, I saw a message come through our political page, conservative political page, New Conservative it's called, that it was in the private chat and it said, I will kill you. And so obviously I was very taken aback by that. And just before I clicked into it, I thought I'd needed to take a screenshot of it just in case it disappeared. So I took a shot of it, and as I clicked on it, you could see it had been edited, and so the person who had put the original message, I will kill you, had changed it to say, sorry, wrong person. Okay, now what happened from there is I did report it to the police because I felt, this is not just a watch your back. It's a quite a serious threat. So I filed a report with the police for both of those comments. And if you're watching from overseas, instead of ringing the 111 emergency, because it wasn't an immediate threat right in front of me, I rang our other line, police line, which is 105. And the person on that end gave me the link where I had to go and file the report, put the information through. And that's okay. That happened. And then I waited 5 days. 5 days, there was no contact from anyone. Not one phone call from any police. And so I'm sitting here thinking, is it even being investigated? What's happening? There's a person out there who's just said I'm going to kill you. And so I was a little bit alarmed at that. And in the meantime, our justice person, who I will introduce you to soon, put out a press release as well, questioning why the police hadn't done anything at that point, and also why media hadn't picked it up, because we had talked about this and had contacted media. And I'll just touch on media first. So we did. There was no media contact at first until our justice spokesperson put out a very strong press release around this, and then directly after that, I was contacted by Stuff News, and then by Radio New Zealand, RNZ, and both journalists. So they did give me an interview. Both journalists were very fair, and they heard what I had to say. However, they then told me that they would send that interview to their team to see if it had public interest and if it would be reported on. Now, in the meantime, after the 5 days, I phoned the police again to inquire what had happened with this report that I'd made. And the woman on the phone, she was very, very supportive, really supportive, and she was actually just as appalled that nobody had contacted me. And she suggested I put a complaint in, not just to the police department, but also with the ICCP. So I've never done anything like this before, but hey, I went in and added the complaint. And then within a day, I had a phone call from the Christchurch officer down here in Christchurch. And he told me that it had been picked up and that they were sending it back to Wellington because the person who had threatened me lives in Wellington. And so the Wellington police would be in contact. I then received a call from the Wellington sergeant the next morning telling me that he would go out and visit this particular person. I'll just say a little bit about this particular person because the Facebook page, the account where the threat came from, I clicked into it and could see the person, who he is, and on his account it had said that he was somebody else. And so it was pretty clear that he was using a different account name. I shared those that account. Actually, other people had seen it as well and were making comments. But our justice person, he had actually gone into that account and taken many photos, screenshots of the account. Very quickly, that person deleted absolutely everything from his account, or his personal photos that he had of himself. I won't say too much about the personal photos because they are personal and I'm not cruel. But yeah, he very quickly deleted every photo that he had, as well as the information that he said who he really was. However, our justice person had taken all these shots, so I was able to send them off to the police. We found out that the identity of the person was somebody who had, a number of years back, sent a bomb threat to a venue. The venue was supposed to host a couple of international speakers who were coming over, Lauren Southern and a gentleman. Now, after the bomb threat, the venue cancelled, and it turns out that those two international speakers weren't able to come into New Zealand. They were refused entry. Okay, I don't know all the details about that situation, but I have been told that the police did contact this person who made the threat, and apparently it was apparently a joke. So this is important for when I share about what's happened with the investigation to mine. Now, when the Wellington officer told me he was going up to visit this person, I asked him if he could phone me back afterwards to let me know the outcome. And so he did. He called me back in the afternoon. And this is where it becomes a little bit, it was a bit challenging. Actually, when I heard the response, I was quite challenged with the outcome. So the officer said to me, he said, "This is a story. This person obviously didn't deny it, so he did make the statement. The person said that he was doing it not so that we would receive the message, but he was doing it to then delete it, but take the photo to share with his friends, thinking it was funny, and so that he could have a bit of fun with his friends." Now, this person, he didn't look like he was a juvenile delinquent or in his 20s and still being, really immature, which he may have done maybe during the bomb threat. But, he did look in his 30s, and he might even be watching there. I imagine him and his friends are going to view this at some point. Because the interesting thing is, they're following my personal page as well, and that is how this is all eventuated, because the story he's told the police, his excuse, his defence, is he said that he had been told right from the start from somebody who had been on my personal page that there was a threat towards me, and I had asked about it, and so he wanted to show people what a real threat looked like, because a threat saying "watch your back" he didn't find was a threat, and so he feels like saying "I will kill you," that's a threat. And so this was his excuse to the police, that he said he was doing it for a joke towards his friends, so it wasn't intended for us to see it. Now, the interesting thing is he also told the police that he didn't even know who the leader of the party was, or that it had even changed, and that it was me, a female. He thought it was the old leader. This is what the police told me. The police officer told me. This is the story he gave to me. Now, you're probably sitting out there like I was, thinking this police officer is either absolutely thick or yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure that you can understand the fact that you've gone 1 minute saying that you've got information from my personal page that I had a threat, to that the other end saying that his defence was he didn't even know who I was and that I was a party leader. Yeah, so make of that what you will. Anyway, the police officer then told me that they wouldn't be prosecuting because there was nothing, there was no public interest in it, and the fact that there was that the police officer didn't believe that this person had any real intention, and so it was basically nothing else was going to happen. And I questioned the police officer and I asked him, because I'm hearing this for the first time, thinking, are you crazy? I questioned him and I said, so you're being judge and the jury to make that decision. I don't really think that that's your role. Anyway, long story short, he told me that you could imagine how they couldn't prosecute people because of everybody, the amount of threats that go online, the amount of abuse, and they can't actually prosecute all of these harmful communications. And I'm thinking, this is more than just a harmful communication, it's actually a death threat. And so I was rather heated, I've got to say, and it became quite obvious. I have to say, I do respect our police force, and I do believe that the majority of the police are in there because they really want to do the right thing by the citizens and be impartial and do their job and their duty to protect people. Yeah, and I don't know this police officer personally. However, he wasn't really listening to what I had to say, and he turned around. I asked him, I said to him, because I don't know the system, I asked him if he could email me the report of what he'd just said, and he said, no, you can be like everybody else and request an OIA. And I found that rather, I mean, I know he's not medical and, the bedside manner thing, but I kind of thought, here I am as the supposed, potential victim of a threat, and you just brush me off just like that. So I did mention the fact that I was quite confused about the fact that here there is a serious threat, and yet in our community here in New Zealand, there's lots of other particular groups that claim hate speech or that they've been threatened. And I didn't mention which ones, and I didn't talk about it, but I'm thinking about rainbow crossings and things, and how very quickly people are charged with hate, and how very quickly the police respond. And so I had mentioned to this officer, I said, I'm surprised because there are some groups where you do act quite quickly. And he said to me, oh, you're going down that vein, are you? And then he hung up on me, and that was that. Yeah, and so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to bring in my guest, who is, fortunately, the Conservative Party spokesperson for Law and Justice. And I'm going to bring him in, but just before I do, I'm looking. Here he is. So Stephen is coming in shortly. Stephen is currently completing a Master's in Legal Studies at University of Auckland. Stephen is a Director of Litigation Support Services. And my computer is just mucked up, that's okay. He acts as a court-appointed litigation guardian, a Mackenzie friend, or court support person. He's a successful law and justice consumer advocate since 2011. Stephen set up a legal precedent as a self-represented person in harassment law in 2014, resulting in the imprisonment of a serial fraudster who fleeced over 71 victims of a collective $3.4 million over 32 years. He is a fierce advocate for justice. Stephen has also been a successful self-represented litigant in disputes tribunals, District Court, High Court, Court of Appeal and Supreme Court of New Zealand, experiences which have made Stephen a very effective applied practice real-world spokesman for the Conservative and in the area of law and justice portfolio. So we are very grateful to have Stephen on board as the convener of the Ministry of Injustice New Zealand, which he can talk more about that to you. Stephen is most passionate about improving access to justice and holding power to account when miscarriages of justice, of abuse, of process by the police or judiciary are committed against the citizens. In particular, Stephen is very keen for a royal commission of inquiry into police conduct to be initiated by the government, given the increasing evidential findings of police misconduct cases outcomes in New Zealand. And I'll let him talk further to you about that. And I'm just going to see if I can get him in here now. So Stephen Taylor, we welcome you to the stage. Welcome. And you've probably just heard the account, and I hope I didn't miss anything out, but I'm sure you'll draw it out if I did. What are your thoughts around what happened to me around the justice?
Well, good evening, Helen, and thank you for having me on tonight's podcast. Having some familiarity with the events that have transpired, I was sitting here listening, almost unsure where to start. So I put myself in the position of, if I was assessing this as an objective prosecutor, what would be the thresholds I'd be looking at to find out such things as evidential sufficiency, public interest, those sort of thresholds that police prosecution services would ordinarily look at. You're quite right in terms of the policeman you were talking to wasn't the person to make the call on prosecution. The normal course of events is that an investigation is undertaken, that information is given to police prosecution services. Police prosecution services assess evidential sufficiency and public interest. I wish I could say that in my experience, your experience was a one-off, but I can't. Sadly, your experience is one of the hundreds of cases I'm familiar with in terms of what I would term as willful ignorance by the New Zealand police. The policeman that you were talking to wasn't thick. They were being administratively strategic in doing the least amount of work on this file as possible. The easiest way to do that is to claim there's an absence of evidential sufficiency, because that's the first test prosecutorial threshold that needs to be met, followed by public interest. The fact of the matter is that what happened to you meets the threshold of Section 306 of the Crimes Act 1961. And Section 306 says that in New Zealand, making a threat to kill or cause grievous bodily harm is a criminal offence. The Act makes it illegal to threaten to kill or to threaten grievous bodily harm, or, and this is important, to send a written communication containing such a threat. The maximum penalty for that offence under Section 306 is 7 years imprisonment. So we're not talking about a Category 1 or a Category 2 crime here. It's Category 3 at least in terms of what's occurred. And if I had to sum it up in one sentence in terms of observation over the years, the reason that you were dismissed essentially by the New Zealand police is because you're the wrong brand of victim. In November 2024, the police took 27 days to respond to the defacing of a rainbow crossing in K Road, to file a charge, to complete a prosecution, and to effect a sentence and reparation. 27 days. Now, in a justice system, particularly in the civil jurisdiction, where around 10,000 cases are currently before the courts, about 71% of those are being fronted by self-represented litigants who don't qualify for legal aid but can't afford a lawyer. And the massive clog that's in the criminal justice system and the civil and family court. A 27-day turnaround is unheard of, and you can imagine would require significant motivation by police prosecution services to pick that up and go that fast. The reality, and it's an unfortunate reality, that in New Zealand, as in the UK, we're certainly seeing evidence of that now, we have a two-tier policing system. And the two tiers, tier one is acclaimed marginalised communities with acclaimed special status, and tier two is everybody else. Now, how do I verify that claim? Well, I know, for example, that the police hire over 120 what's called diversity liaison officers for the acclaimed alphabet community. That's 120 officers specifically for that sector of the population. Now, to give you a comparative analysis, there are about 160 cultures in New Zealand, ethnicities in New Zealand. There are 6 ethnic liaison officers hired by the police. So 120 on one hand, and 6 on the other. One quickly starts to see where at least the perspective or perception of bias may be evident. And then when we correlate that with examples, with a person comes to mind, Rex Landy, who's a women's advocate, prosecuted under the Harmful Digital Communications Act, subsequently had her home raided, her computers taken, files taken, and was instructed by the police that any conversation that she had with police, she had to refer to a transsexual male as a woman. In other words, police were compelling her speech, and her failure to do so would result in additional charges. So you may be aware about a year ago, the Free Speech Union was very successful in shutting down the police trying to attach non-existent hate crime to people's files and names. And the police have been doing this for a number of years, basically flagging files as hate crimes when there's no hate crime legislation in the statute. The Free Speech Union caught them doing it, took them to task, and the police, albeit very reluctantly, decided to stop doing that. But don't think for a second that the police aren't monumentally enthusiastic about wanting to compel our speech, to shut down dissent, and to basically not look after the wrong brand of victim. And you've had a very unfortunate first-person experience, and not just from the police. When you consider the media response, I recall one of the media responses we got was, well, thank you for the story. We'll see if there's an appetite for it, which is kind of astonishing in the wake of a political assassination that reverberated around the world of a conservative leader whose influencing voice was probably third behind Donald Trump and J.D. Vance in the US, attracted 100 million streams in terms of the funeral, and yet an organ, I think it was Radio New Zealand, wasn't it, said, oh, we want to see if there's an appetite for the story. Either that's willful ignorance, or we have a state-funded broadcaster so utterly divorced from reality. I almost don't have the words to describe it. But ultimately, a crime was committed. There's no doubt about that. The legislation is very clear. The evidential threshold was easily met, and public interest was easily met. There's absolutely no doubt in my mind at all.
Yeah, I would have thought so as well. And even if let's just give him the benefit of the doubt, even if he was jokingly, supposedly doing it to share with his friends, I do find that a little bit odd that you would go to a political page and say, yeah, that you've sent it to the wrong person. I just don't, it's bizarre. It's bizarre behaviour. And like I've heard even with the local body elections, the abuse, the everything that is, thrown at these politicians or even anybody that's trying to stand up for something. I mean, like I said earlier before you came in, we all come to politics with a passion, you could say, about what we want to stand up for. Not one, the police, I just can't understand why they would choose to be more supportive of one over another. But look, I spoke at the Charlie Vigil on Sunday night here in Christchurch, Stephen, and I'm not going to read out my whole speech, but I just want to say one or two points to it, which I read in no matter what you believe, no matter where you stand politically, violence used to silence, to threaten, or to intimidate another person because of their beliefs must always be condemned, right? And the other thing I just want to say is if threats and intimidation become the price of speaking, then none of us are truly free. Shutting down people does not build peace, it actually fuels extremism. And I said that freedom is not agreement. So this is not about us having to agree with everybody. Freedom is the right to disagree, but it's the right to disagree without fear. And now what we're having is, like, you've probably seen it, some people pulling out of political debates or even standing because of this fear. And I've actually had some family members who are a little bit concerned about me being politically active. But at the end of the day, if people are pulling out of this, and if I walked away from politics, I mean, do you really want that? Do we want that as a society where it's like people have managed to completely silence and shut down a particular view, and to the point that we cannot actually speak about it? It's horrendous. In the early days of my law degree, which I started about 4 years ago, the first year in uni here on campus, Steve and I tried to start a conservative group club, because there's lots of clubs, for different political parties. And there was a number of people that came along to the meeting. And do you know what they said to me? They said that they were actually afraid that they could not speak about their views. And here you have these loud and proud lefty people, or rainbow groups and communities out there shouting and carrying on like they're victims, and yet the conservative young people are the ones who can't speak and feel like that they can't put their views out. So I do question that. I also want to say, when it comes to left or right, or rainbow community, or any other community, because there's women's rights, there's all sorts of things, people stand up for all sorts of things, the life of the unborn child, etc. Whatever it is that you're standing up for, like, and whether you're in a community that's like called the rainbow community because of your sexuality, at the end of the day, Stephen, I actually don't care. I don't care what another adult's doing, as long as it's not harming somebody. I don't care about somebody's sexuality. It's not my business. But the thing is, I actually don't want them making it my business. It's like, just, why do you have to make such a big song and dance about it? Like, we have to actually, or I have to embrace it and believe it, and, do what you need to do. I don't care. But I don't have to agree with it. And so the problem here is, though, that when we stand up for these things and our own views, then there's this pushback, like, well, there's actually lies then being portrayed over us with these trigger words like racist, bigot, transphobic, and so it shuts down the community conversation. And I'm all about talking and building relationship. Even at one of the outside Parliament, there was a we had a lot of women out there speaking once about this women's rights and the toilets and the sports and the gender stuff in schools. And over to the side, we had a bunch of people from a community who think that they're transgender, whatever that actually means. And I made a point, there were police there, and police were there. I made a point of going over to them and actually trying to engage in conversation. And while, some of them were just swearing and cursing and hurling abuse at me, there were a couple that actually spoke with me, and we had a really good conversation. And I turned around and I said to one of them, who he identifies as a female, but I said to him, I don't hate you. And he said to me, I don't hate you. And I think that's really important. And I hope that people actually hear this message, because instead of thinking that the people are, anti-trans or whatever, it's people actually just standing up and talking about what they believe in their views. And I think we've got a lot of issues if we can't actually do that. So I'm hoping that the community, how do we move forward? I said at the beginning, how do we mend the social fabric and restore trust I mean, is there a way to do that? I'm going to check comments, but what are your thoughts around, these having threats and intimidations? Because it's not going to stop unless somebody, leaders actually, we don't have to agree with each other, the leaders from the opposite ends of the spectrum, but it's going to take the leaders to actually stand up and get some testicles. I was told many years ago they didn't use the word testicles, but I'll use that because it's probably more polite than the shorter version. But I was told I had them, and it's like, stand up. I mean, I have this whole debate around gender. I'm quite a masculine female, I suppose, and that's okay. I'm not a girly girl. I would have liked to have been a girly girl because I love pretty dresses, but they don't suit me because I'm quite a masculine person, and that's okay. Just like there's some feminine males, and that's okay. I think we're really messing with people and messing with our communities by pretending it's different than that. I do see a comment. Thank you, Luke. Thank you. Yeah, how can we have unity, Luke? I mean, you hear my heart. Sure, I come out strongly, but I mean, everybody that's standing up for something stands strongly, and but I'm certainly not wanting to ever promote violence, and I don't want people to do that. However, I am realistic, and there is always conflict. When you get a situation like this, Stephen, and I was really frustrated with this police officer to the point that, while I respected him, I was very, very heated. And if I'm not going to be protected, if you're not going to be protected, if people that are watching and those who might be on a different political flavour than, what's popular with certain police, if we can't trust them, what's to stop us then wanting to actually go and get arms to protect ourselves? And I'm not recommending that. I'm not saying that. But me being a woman, I mean, it's something that I would possibly consider if I think that the police are not going to do their job and actually support me. If you look internationally, and if you're looking at New Zealand to come into this safe country, and then you see that they're not actually defending certain aspects or sectors of society, are you going to want to come to New Zealand? I don't think so. But yeah, there's a lot we could talk about. So is there anything else that you could add around what's next?
Well, I think there's probably a couple of things there. I mean, under the Police Act, the police take an oath, and central to that oath is to police without fear or favour. And in New Zealand, for some years now, we have had a police force that doesn't police without fear or favour. Very, very clear. You see it their policy documents, you see it their training in Wellington, you see it their approach to citizens at a pro-Palestine protest. God forbid if you're holding an Israeli flag, you'll be the one that'll be arrested for breaching the peace. Let me go back to something else you said, was with regard to people standing up, and you said that leadership needs to stand up, and that's true, but that's part of the answer. When one considers the risks right across the board to people to stand up in this current culture, those risks to speak up exist in family, where simply having an alternative opinion can split a relationship or split a family. Those risks exist in employment. In fact, not just at the hours that you're in employment, you can be sacked for taking a specific stand on something and then being accused of bringing the company that you work for into disrepute, even when you're not on the clock. That was unheard of a few years ago. So you're basically on watch 24 hours, 7 days a week, potentially with the people that you love or for the organizations that you work for. And so when one considers the risk ratio of speaking up, those losses are not only potential, but they're actual. And so asking people to stand up is a very big ask indeed, which is why so few people do it, because the risks are inherent. Essentially, in this environment, to really, really stand up, one has to put their whole self on the line.
Yeah.
Nothing more, nothing less is going to be adequate, because it's exactly what the opposition voices will do. They play like they have nothing to lose, because often they don't, which is often why they're more motivated, they're more organised, they're better financed, and they're more ruthless. Part of the conservative malay, I think, is that we tend to play really nice with people who want to take us out. And we've been acculturated to believe that if someone gets offended, then that's a really, really bad thing if we say something that they deem to be offensive. My stock standard response to anyone who says to me, "Oh, I'm offended by what you said," is my standard response is, then be offended. Nothing actually happens. You're upset with me, you disagree with me, you think I'm a bigot or a Nazi, or they're words. They're just words. I regard, if people want to have an opinion, we'll have an opinion. I might not happen to agree with it. There might be some abusive words attached to it, but I don't care. I'm past caring. I've been past caring for many years. And so there's a courage that needs to be summoned alongside a solid dose of wisdom. We don't want to be reckless, but we do want to be assertive. And I think sometimes the pejoratives, perhaps with regard to masculine women and feminine men, it might just be traits around assertiveness or traits around courtesy, which don't have to be attached particularly to a male or a female, right? That they're inherent traits, or there might be values, or being informed by principles, and that's enough. So yeah, I think there is risk, and ultimately, thinking about it a wee while ago, for the Conservative Party, we need 175,000 people to have the courage to say, we agree with you so strongly, we will vote for you. And that's not necessarily mean they agree with everything, but 175,000 equals 5%. That's what it equals, right?
It's not that many people, really, when you think about it. 175,000.
Well, but try getting 5%. Like, it's really, really hard, because what tends to happen is that the challenge between courage and conformity often happens inside the little orange ballot box. I'd love to have the courage to vote differently, but I'm too afraid to do so. Which is why we have the what's been termed the uni party situation we have at the moment: Labour, National Labour. A couple of smaller parties on the side. Keep them honest. That's often the language that you're going to keep them honest. To vote for real change is going to take incredible courage by 175,000 people. Okay, and in 18 months, in 18 months, we're going to find out whether there's 175,000 courageous conservatives in this country.
Well, we'll see, won't we? Let's hope there is. Yeah. The truth is, deep down, most of us all want the same thing. We want safe streets, strong families, well, most of us, and fair opportunities for our children. So the thing is, like, obviously, there's a reason why we need different voices in Parliament to make sure that those people, the views that we hold, what we believe in, we want people in Parliament who are similar to us. And so, you talked about the whole masculine, feminine thing, and I'm just reminded about something that's happened recently. Actually, it's been happening for some time. It's related to labels. So, Politics for me. I mean, I avoided politics and religion most of my life. Who would want to? You'd have to be nuts to get involved, right? That's what I used to think. Now I'm smack bang in the middle of both of them. But with that comes like the labels are there. So it'd be easier for me to go back to my knitting, plait my hair, do my baking, keep my house clean, do the garden, bottle all the fruits and vegetables, doing all those things that I like to do. But that's actually a label now. It's like a trad wife. You've probably heard the term trad wife.
Yes, indeed.
And it's
Yes.
like, but it's Stephen. It's like a negative thing. It's like it's a negative thing to be a traditional woman who actually enjoys um, cooking and cleaning, who actually enjoys being in the home. Um, I mean, isn't that just bizarre? You know,
Well, the
that's
opposition often
bizarre.
comes, the opposition or the labels, the lexicon of, trad wife, toxic masculinity, pick a number, is often anchored in a deep insecurity in those who are criticizing us. And so when people are deeply insecure, they generally attack. They're not usually in the realm of negotiation or respectful disagreement. They attack.
Or people that actually they see as doing well or looking like they're enjoying their life and having and actually they don't want somebody to enjoy it. Yeah, I don't know. It's pretty
Well,
crazy. But
well
look,
no,
there's a
yeah,
comment here from
yeah. Hmm.
sorry, there's a comment that's come through from Charmaine who has said, "I would like people to be armed for self-protection. If anyone comes to your home to kill you, should be able to defend yourself somehow." Yeah, yeah. Like I want to be able to defend
Well,
myself
I mean, Charmaine's brought up a
if I
very good
need
point
to.
there.
So
Yeah, Charmaine's brought up a very good point. The it's a story that surprises people sometimes, but my youngest son's now 12. When he was 6 months old, we had a home invasion about 1 in the morning, and we first alerted to it when someone was trying to come through our French door, and the person got in, and I got to the person, and I remember grabbing them and then putting them into a hole, thinking I mustn't kill them because you mustn't do that, right? So my wife rang the police. I held the person down. The police came, took them away. He was prosecuted. And then afterwards, I thought, gee, how well is our house protected? You kind of do a security assessment in terms of that. Right?
yeah,
And so, what Charmaine said in terms of self-protection, I'm a huge fan of self-protection. I'm a huge fan of self-defense. I think it should be taught in every school. I get very concerned when schools conflate violence and self-defense. So if a kid is getting whacked and defends himself, both kids get in trouble. That's just wrong. Violence is not self-defense, and self-defense isn't violence. They're wrongly conflated. And so what I did, what I've done, I mean, we've got security cameras in the house. There's not a place in our house anywhere where you can't reach for some sort of immediate weapon to defend yourself. Like they're everywhere. We've built bigger fences. We've got a nice big farm gate with a lock. Because what I realized in terms of my experience with the police over the years is we can't rely on the police to protect us anymore. The police become so offender-centered and so willfully ignorant of what is justice. We absolutely must take proper steps to defend ourselves. So I'm in complete agreement with Charmaine, and so there's
Charmaine. Yeah,
because that's
yeah. Well,
absolutely.
Look. I actually okay, so obviously I've got some masculine parts, but I'm also a big girly. I'm a big softie. I don't
You
like
might just be
violence
assertive.
for any sort. However, there's a however, Stephen. There is a however. So humanity, we all experience emotion, whether it's grief, anger. We all experience at some point in our life, sadness, happiness, joy, the whole rafter. So I'm not going to deny the fact that sometimes I haven't experienced anger and actually want to punch the BGs out of somebody. But I still hate violence, right? However, if somebody is coming for me, I'm going to give them a good smack back, because it is defense. You do have to defend yourself. Of course, you have to defend yourself. Just like a country that's getting invaded, you have to defend yourself. You know, we would expect our leaders to defend our country if Australia invaded us. I mean, I'm sure they wouldn't because they're our friends, but you know, I mean, it's just defending yourself is really important. Self-defense. Imagine if we had daughters and they were being attacked, and we would say, "Yeah, don't hit back, or don't, you know, I mean, you do what you need to get out of that situation if you're in a situation." Same with boys, same, yeah.
Although this is be bizarre for people to hear, but I've dealt with situations in support of clients where they've been defending themselves, and the police have threatened the victims with being charged with assault because they defended themselves. So the police talk a lot about proportionality in terms of response. When you're under attack, you're not taking someone's CV and doing a personality assessment, right? You're trying. You're going to.
Yeah.
So the gobsmacking component in terms of the police is they threaten and have prosecuted people for defending themselves, even though those people were not the initiator of the initial attack. I mean, it's Twilight Zone thinking in terms of
it's what they see in the law. In the law, it's actually the defence is like versus like. So if somebody's coming at you, if they're going to punch you, you can't pull a knife on them to defend yourself and, you know, go and cut them up and say that you defended yourself. That's what they look at. Apparently, they're supposed to anyway. You know, if somebody's got a weapon, obviously you using a weapon to actually defend yourself is going to be looked at like it's a proper defense. Whereas if you're using a weapon against someone who doesn't have a weapon, but anyway, that's questionable. Now Luke has got a comment. Right, sorry Luke, I might have missed that when that was, but we soften our hearts and try to understand their thought process. I don't know about I don't know if we can understand everybody's thought processes, Luke. I know that you're a kind and caring person, but we show empathy but put up boundaries. We do our best not to mock and ridicule. Yep. It's the police that are defending one side but not the other. Go straight to the commissioners and ministers of police and get them to understand through maybe a petition that is indeed if in the public's best interest to prosecute all threats on political party leaders such as yourself. Food for thought. Thank you for that comment, Luke. I'll just throw that up there. I mean, sorry.
Yeah. I'll just mindful of time. I'll need to go soon. I just want to finish on a comment on the IPCA, if I may, Helen. So sure. The Independent Police Conduct Authority is charged with the responsibility of monitoring police conduct. And it's ironic that they call themselves the Independent Police Conduct Authority, but of the 100% of complaints that they get, only 2 to 3% are independently assessed. And the threshold for a truly independent assessment is someone has to die or be seriously injured. If those thresholds haven't been met, then most often the complaints are referred back to the very police station that one is complaining about for the police to investigate themselves. Now, when you consider that the police are a $2.2 billion organisation up against an organisation with the IPCA, which has 40 staff and $5 million in budget, it's the equivalent of Band-Aid trying to look after a gaping wound. So there's a pretense of accountability, but then you dig a little deeper and you discover that the IPCA has a memorandum of understanding with the New Zealand Police Force as to how they're going to conduct the investigations, which kind of eradicates the independent aspect. I think the IPCA does as good a job as they're allowed to do, but they're legislatively toothless. They can only ever make recommendations for sanction. They can't actually sanction. They can publicise results, but police hide behind anonymity. Policeman A, policeman B, policeman C. Yet the complainants can be named. So if people go to the Conservative Party website, you'll see the press releases I've written in terms of strengthening or sharpening the teeth of the IPCA, and also a summary of police misconduct through the Ministry of Injustice Facebook page, which I published as well. We have a very, very big problem with the integrity of the police force in New Zealand. The Ministry of Justice, we've highlighted 180 examples, over 180 examples now of police misconduct, as reported by media. Right? All I did is look for the articles over several months. I put them into one place and said, here they all are. And oh my goodness, we had police lying to the court, lying to the media, lying to the IPCA, lying to the Ministry of Police, lying to complainants, not providing disclosure, not complying with discovery orders. It just went on and on and on. People who are watching this can see that at the Moines website. There needs to be much stronger accountability of our police force, because right now they're out of control, and I think they've been out of control for some time. There is no true sanction.
Yeah. Okay. Look, thank you for everything tonight, Stephen. Thank you for all that information. We are, as a party, we're very grateful to have you on board. And for those watching now, and for anyone watching later, you can go onto our website, Conservative Party website, and find these media releases that either myself or that Stephen has put out under our news. You can sign up as well to get information directly to your email. Keep abreast of everything that we're doing and talking about, because there's always something that we're actually challenging and writing about. So as I said, Stephen, really appreciate your time. So how do we turn everything around? Well, I suggest we start small by us. I mean, I said before that the unity is not going to come from the government. If people are sitting there waiting for the government to actually create unity, it won't happen. It will have to come from us, how we treat each other. And Luke is right. It is about trying to have an understanding of other people, without having to actually agree with them, though, and without having to appease them. Like, I do get frustrated with a certain sector of the community who actually, to be honest, it's very narcissistic to think that the rest of society needs to not only agree with you, but then turn into little activists for you and promote you and have everything rainbow and lovely out there.
It's also desperately insecure.
Yeah. What I say is actually find the love in you, and seek something a bit higher, maybe, that can come in and fill your heart with the joy and the peace that some of us do have. Thank you for your time, Stephen.
Appreciate the opportunity, Helen.
Yeah, thanks to those who have tuned in tonight. I will check if there's any comments later. Put your thoughts up there and we'll get back to you. And I will look forward to seeing you again soon. Thank you for your support, all the messages of support that you have sent through to us. And yeah, like Stephen said before, we need 170,000 people to vote for us come the next election, and you'll get me and a couple of others into Parliament. So share that message and you'll see me again soon. Good night, everyone. Have a marvellous Sunday tomorrow. Bless you.